Good evening, everyone. We're truly glad to have you back with us tonight. You know, taxis are supposed to get you home safely. But what happens when the ride takes you straight into a nightmare? Before we begin, let us know in the comments. What time is it where you are? And where in the world are you watching from? We love knowing who's joining us each night. Now, turn off the lights, get comfortable, and remember, you're watching to Sleep Horror Stories. My name is Mark, and I'm a cab driver in Tucson, Arizona. Most of my work comes from regular clients, people who already know me and call when they need a ride. Still, every now and then I pick up strangers. And that's how this dark, twisted story begins. One night, I was heading home after a long shift. It was almost midnight. I was driving near downtown, but everything was shut down and eerily quiet. Then, I saw two men on the sidewalk waving at me. I thought about ignoring them. I was off duty, but bills don't pay themselves. So I pulled over. They were both dressed in black. Looked young, maybe in their 20s, but I couldn't make out their faces. It was dark and the street lights were dim. They asked if I could take them somewhere on the outskirts of the city. I said yes, and they got in. I usually try to chat with passengers to keep things friendly. But these guys barely answered. They didn't even talk to each other. The silence was heavy, and the vibe started to feel uncomfortable. Halfway there, one of them got a phone call. I glanced in the rearview mirror and saw he was using an old-school Nokia brick phone, left from the early 2000s. He answered and said, "We're on the way. Don't start yet." Then after a pause, "Yeah, we've got one." And then he hung up. I just kept driving. By now, we were way outside the city. The road was deserted. They kept giving me directions since they didn't have an exact address. I asked if we were close, and one of them said, 15 more minutes. I was irritated. They hadn't told me it was this far out. Then my wife called. She was worried and asked where I was. But before I could say anything, the guy behind me snatched the phone from my hand and tossed it out the window. I yelled, "What the hell's wrong with you?" But he pulled out a knife and pressed it to my neck. "Relax," he said. "Just keep driving." The terror I felt is indescribable. I thought they were going to rob me, steal my car, or worse. But what they had in mind was far worse than anything I imagined. I said, "Okay, I'll do whatever you want. Just don't hurt me. I've got two little girls waiting for me at home." He responded, "Shut up. Just keep driving and don't say another word." So I obeyed. We kept driving for a few more minutes until one of them said, "Turn here." It was a dirt road surrounded by brush. There was nothing but desert and shadows. Honestly, I thought I was already dead. I followed the road until we reached a 3-story house. Abandoned. Falling apart. No doors. No windows. Just darkness. They told me to turn off the engine, so I did. And they made me get out. As we walked toward the house, I asked, "What do you want from me? I don't have money. My family's broke. I'm just a cabbie." "Shut up," one of them barked, "unless you want to get cut." They led me upstairs, 2nd floor. It was the most terrifying walk of my life. Pitch black. I tripped on the stairs. There was a foul stench in the air. Then we reached the 3rd floor. That's when I saw them. A group of people in black cloaks, standing in a circle around a small fire. Thanks to the flames, I could see everything. Screams filled the room. 3 of the people were tied up on the floor, hands and feet bound, tape over their mouths. They were crying, screaming through the tape. In the center of the floor was a giant star, a pentagram. And the walls were covered with strange symbols in some foreign language. Before I could react, someone hit me on the head. I collapsed. I didn't black out completely, but I couldn't move. They tied me up like the others. I heard a voice, sounded like the leader, ask, "Is the only one?" Yes, someone else replied. Sorry, it's all we got. They slapped me to keep me awake. I guess they needed us conscious for whatever ritual they were doing. Everyone formed a circle around us. They started chanting in a language I didn't understand. I began to cry. I was sure this was the end. Then they took out knives and started making small cuts on our bodies. They smeared our blood on their faces, drawing twisted shapes, never stopping to chant. I was trembling. The girl next to me passed out. One of them tried to wake her up, but she didn't respond. So they threw her out the window. Just like that. She was no longer of use. In a horrible way, maybe she was lucky. Once they finished, everyone went silent. Then we heard it, strange animal sounds coming from outside. But they weren't animals. They were something else. Something they had summoned. The cultists started laughing. They were thrilled. I fought to stay awake. I didn't want to end up like that girl. Then the sound stopped. They grabbed their knives again and moved toward us. The leader said, "It's time." The others screamed in pure desperation. I clenched my eyes shut, waiting for it. But then someone shouted, "Wait, headlights." They all rushed to the window. I heard the sound of a truck pulling up. The cultists ran outside with their weapons. Then gunshots. The rest of us screamed for help. I used what little strength I had left to yell. A few minutes later, 3 armed soldiers came up the stairs. They had been patrolling the desert, tracking a gang, and stumbled upon this nightmare. They were our miracle. They untied us and took us to the hospital. I passed out, didn't wake up until next day. My wife was by my side. I cried like a child, thinking I'd never see her again. A detective came to ask questions. They'd only managed to catch one of the cult members. The others disappeared into the desert. The man they caught refused to speak. He said he'd rather die than break their blood pact. I told them everything. They said they'd investigate. But they never found the others. That man is still in prison. And still hasn't said a word. Which means those people are still out there. Hidden in the desert. Taking innocent people for their satanic rituals. And getting away with it. Because no one knows where they are. And the number of missing people keeps growing. Thank you for listening to my story. It's a miracle I'm still here to tell it. My name is Joseph Lewis, and this is a paranormal experience I had a few years ago while working as a cab driver in New Orleans, Louisiana. It was around 8 p.m. I just got out to start my night shift like I always did. I usually parked near the Greyhound bus station. That's where I picked up most of my fares. But that night, before I even got there, I was stopped at a red light when something strange happened. Out of nowhere, an older woman, maybe in her 60s, jumped into the back seat. She was dressed entirely in black. I was startled. She had come out of nowhere. I was a bit annoyed too, but I didn't want to be rude. I just said, "Good evening. Next time, please flag me down before getting in. It's dangerous. I almost didn't see you." She didn't apologize. All she said was, "Take me home. They're waiting for me. I'm in a hurry." She handed me a small, wrinkled piece of paper with an address on it. So I started driving. As I glanced in the rearview mirror, I noticed she was staring at me. Unblinking, unmoving. Her eyes were red, like she'd been crying for hours. I asked if she was okay. She simply replied, "I need to get home. My husband and son are waiting." So I pressed the gas a little harder. The sooner I dropped her off, the better. Eventually, I reached the address she had given me. It was a rundown area, practically deserted. There's only one house standing, and it looked completely abandoned. I said, "Ma'am, I think I got lost. Could you help me figure out the right address?" But she said, "This is the place. Thank you." She got out of the cab and walked straight toward that abandoned house. I sat there, stunned. I didn't feel right leaving her there. It was a dangerous-looking place. So I waited in the cab. Minutes passed. No sign of her. Eventually, I got out and called out, "Mom, are you okay?" No answer. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't just leave her. So I walked up to the front of the house. It was only one story, and peeked inside. Nothing. I turned on my phone's flashlight and stepped in. No sign of her. She had vanished. I ran back to my car and took off. Confused, shaken. Honestly, I was scared. When I got home that night, I couldn't stop thinking about what happened. So I typed the address into Google. And what I found froze my blood. 10 years earlier, there had been a tragedy at that very address. The house caught fire due to a gas leak. A man and his 8-year-old son died inside. As I dug deeper, I came across an old newspaper clipping with a photo of the woman who had entered my cab. The article said she had been the wife and mother of the 2 victims. She had been out of town on a work trip the night of the accident. When she got the news, she suffered a heart attack. She died before ever making it home. I sat in silence, staring at her photo. It was her, no doubt about it. Suddenly, it all made sense. That poor woman. She was still trying to get home to her family. I never imagined I'd have a face-to-face encounter with the dead. But it happened. And to this day, I still don't understand why me.